The opportunity to take my first call on the State Sector Management Bill, and in particular on Part 2. And I have to say I felt prompted to speak on this bill after hearing the contribution of the Minister. For those of you who weren't here at that time, I was listening intently because I was seeking out the purpose of this bill generally, but in particular the purpose of the significant part that is Part 2, and really didn't get any answers other than the fact that apparently we are making this significant merger because he went on a tour of the library and saw a leak in the roof. Apparently that is the reason that we are now merging the National Library into the Department of Internal Affairs. But we also heard, and this is something that vexed me greatly, we also heard from the Minister the claim that the Labor government had somehow run into the ground the National Library and the archives. And I just want to make the following point. I wasn't a member of the select committee that heard submissions on this bill, but I do note that as reported in the Select Committee's report, one submitter noted, someone who actually worked in this area, the past management of the archives function has an unfortunate history characterised by arrested development, lack of resourcing, poor understanding, litigation, rancour and distrust, close quote. Another commented that thousands of unique items that have relevance today have been lost by fire, water, vermin and indifference. I think that was both a metaphorical and a literal reference. That was directly from a submitter making reference to the 1990s, the point at which, as I understand, we last had a go at merging these functions. And so I'd like to ask the Minister, given in the first attempt he did not submit to this House, why we are making this merger, if he could articulate that again for the benefit of this House, because at the moment I see nothing specific to these functions which demonstrate this need. In fact, in seeking the reason why this might be occurring, I felt inclined to draw on some other experience that I've had as a member of the Justice and Electoral Committee, because we've recently undergone a similar consolidation through the Legal Services Agency. Now, at least in that case, that came off the back of a report by Dame Margaret Baisley proving that we probably needed to make significant changes in this area, and that's where this consolidation occurred, and our committee was at great pains to ensure that in doing so we maintained the independence of office that was needed to maintain the public confidence in the Legal Services Agency as it stood. I don't feel I have that same confidence in the way that this merger is taking place. In fact, as has already been remarked, the National Librarian will be a mere third-tier manager within Internal Affairs. And I'd like to ask the Minister, because really for us at a functional level, we need to understand what that's going to mean in terms of the reporting requirements on the National Librarian directly to Parliament. Now, as a third-tier manager, experience holds that when that individual comes to a select committee, they're unlikely even to necessarily have their own hearing. Will members of Parliament, Minister, have the ability to question and cross-examine the National Librarian directly?
As they can now.
As they can currently. Minister. Minister, will members of Parliament have the ability to directly question the National Librarian? I have no response from the Minister. I hope by the end of I can see by the small glint of the facial expression he has registered the question. I hope at some time he clarifies that for us. Perhaps even in the next section we talk about the same issue with the Chief Archivist. Because that is one of the most important abilities we can maintain, not only their ability to report directly to Parliament, but our ability as members of Parliament to directly question them. I have a second question for the Minister. Sitting under Clause 9A of Part 2, I'd be interested for some explanation from the Minister around where he anticipates the National Librarian to use these quite strong delegation powers that have been gifted to them as a mere third-tier manager. It states under 9A that under Clause 2 a delegation, it sets out what a delegation must include. But it essentially states that the National Librarian, Mr Chair.
Colin King.
Mr Chair.